So this really is a palm reading relating to relationships, marriage. I'm going to be talking about all things related to marriage and how to read these things in the hands. Divorce, how many children we might have, how to see if we will marry a rich person, and how the palm shows this as well. But it is also pertaining to the success of a person and how both these questions are sort of intertwined. So first of all, I'm just going to break down the chirognomy here. This person is a fire hand, certainly a long palm and short fingers. However, most importantly, this is one of the seven categories in palmistry known as the conic hand. There are two different types of conic hand. There are those who have this kind of very resilient appearance to the palm, very springy and very vibrant and high energetic, high motivated person, a highly ambitious person, someone who is quite clearly an organizer, especially of other people's workloads. Comic hands tend to be superb salesmen, salespeople, and communicators when they have the right Mercury finger to boot. Now, this person certainly has a long Mercury finger. Notice the little finger here. It looks short at first glance. But then when we compare the length of Mercury against the two bottom phalanges of Apollo, so check it out here. I've got my little measuring guide. Now, this is the length of Mercury, the Mercury finger just here on the right hand. Now, when we offset the difference here with the length, the two bottom phalanges of Apollo, we can clearly see that actually this is a very long Mercury finger indeed. If it reaches past the first phalanx of Apollo, we know we have a long Mercury finger. This is certainly someone who is a good communicator, a strong and able communicator. The Mercury finger itself is actually very pointed, whereas the rest of the fingers are very rounded, conic. Notice the rounded feature of the palm. Everything here is very rounded and sensual. This is someone who works by instinct and feeling, their gut feeling, taste, quite literally. Their taste for, they have a good eye for things in terms of how things look and feel to the touch. But essentially, I get the impression this person is actually a really good cook. And I'll get to how I think that in a moment. But I just want to explain here. Notice how Mercury is actually, this is the measurement of Mercury on the right hand. Notice how it's actually marginally slightly shorter on the right hand. Notice also how all three fingers here, Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, they're all fairly high up on the palm, in particular Saturn and Jupiter. But Mercury, it falls off the edge of a cliff a little bit here. So we know we have a long Mercury finger, but it's very low set. What does this mean? Well, it's one of the key signs of emotional and psychological damage. It's one of the key signs of a lack of confidence. We don't see that in Jupiter, however. In fact, Jupiter is so long and strong and upright. It's got a good width about it. The basal phalanx is strong. That shows a strong need for physical control. So where can we see this lacking of confidence elsewhere in the palms? Well, the first place I would look is for a heart line reaching down towards the lifeline at a certain point in time. And of course, we see it right here. Low confidence often stems from an incident in childhood. And we see that right here. Now, these two signs, this and the low set Mercury finger, are key signifiers of an event that was emotionally traumatic, quite literally physically impactive as well. We see it on the right hand. We see how it affects this person internally as well. We see the deep trauma, the emotional damage, the psychological damage. We see two lines reaching down. It's a highly, this is a horrible incident. I know exactly what this is. I'm not going to be naming it specifically. It's not helpful. But the key takeaway here is notice the alignment in the right hand. The fingers are straight. There's a good thickness about them. There's a good strong personality to this person. There's a need for autonomy and control. This person is, in a sense, a born leader, really. This person hasn't allowed the traumatic event in early life to rule them. They have, in effect, managed to work through and are still working through this. However, there is an emotional kind of retracting quality trait about this person. I want this person to come out of their shell a bit more, articulate their feelings a bit more in relationships. This would help them. Dredging up this past trauma with current um, partners might not be helpful, but understanding why and how this has affected us is important to self-development and self-improvement. Notice also how the heart line is actually higher set on the right hand. Again, another sign of emotional isolation in a sense. This person has, in some ways, kind of retracted a little bit. And notice how we have a gap here between Saturn and Apollo. This person is a bit of a loner. They work best alone. At the same time, there is this kind of leadership. This person needs autonomy. It's not just as a desire. This person needs to be left alone and not to be confined by the boss. So I think in some way they are a boss themselves because actually this is really the only way they could function properly. Notice how Luna is very well developed, especially on the right hand. It's more well developed on the right hand. I think this person now has, and again, this is kind of in line with this newfound alignment. This person enjoys the weekends, probably their own alone time, and may well enjoy spending quality time by the sea. The pointed Mercury finger is a really lovely sign because it shows, again, a very intuitive work by feel. There's judgment by intuition. And it shows a keen ability, a keen aptitude towards learning well, sciences, but also it shows someone who is actually quite a keen articulator, someone who's quite verbally gifted. So, although they might not have the strength of emotional articulation, they're very able, I think, and especially in a work environment, to instruct and communicate in a way that is concise and efficient. As I say, conic hands are superb at organizing other people's workloads. They're highly motivated and they have a great personality, a great spirit. People enjoy working with them. They make great partners as well, provided they can communicate their feelings, provided they don't spend too much money as well, and they are considerate in those regards. On the subject of money, I don't see someone here who's noticed there's almost sort of pinching here at the knot of Saturn here, the first knot. And this actually is a sign of someone who's not very good with numbers. But, however, on the flip side, notice the wasting of Apollo here and the widened basal phalanx of Apollo on the left hand. Now, these are signs of someone who has a critical eye, someone who's potentially a little bit of a nitpicker. So that's something to watch out for in relationships as well. Um, But that's actually a skill, that criticism, because that keen eye for detail, that critical eye, and it's not just an eye, it's critical in how they sense and pick up on things. Because one of the key strengths of this person is really their intuitive judgment, a great sense of judgment of character, as well as um, they're just superb guesstimators. They just kind of know they get a feel for how things should be and taste. And this is why I feel that this person is a good cook. The widened basal phalanx shows someone with exceptional taste, that strength of taste in terms of not just fashion, but literal physical taste. The widened basal phalanx of Jupiter here, yes, it shows that need to control and dominate. And I think that's likely to substitute for the early life occurrence here. I think there's a need here to heal the self by having control around situations. But also, this widened basal phalanx pertains to the need to satiate physical needs, dominate over the body as well. So that's sex, drugs, and food and alcohol. So this person is, I wouldn't say compensating by doing these things. They have a good understanding of what tastes good. And I think they just know by feel when they're cooking. This person might well be a chef of some sort, or in fact, a caterer, an organizer in that kind of industry. I've asked this person for clearer images of the fingerprints so that I could really get to the bottom of their career. Now, this is what I thought I would see, a loop. In fact, a bit of a peacock's eye, which is a type of whirl, sorry, not loop. this is a whirl. And this is exactly what I thought I would see. This is someone who has that creative gift, that ability when it comes to sensing, that intuition and creative ability as well. And we see that with the headline as well, the curvature of the headline. There is a creativity here, but this is more around gut feeling, intuition. And in terms of health, I can see we have a health line here that's willing to kind of cut through the lifeline from the Venus mount and curve right over up onto Upper Mars. And this really does show signs of potential gut intestinal issues. The conic hand essentially is someone who is so connected with feel, with instinct, with gut feeling, with intuition. They abhor structure and routine and you know order. There's their order works by intuition. They'd really rather just get a feel for things and live in the moment rather than have everything organized. So that kind of 9 to 5 in an office, um, staring at the same old thing with every single day, that's confinement, and that's exactly how the chronic man cannot live. So in relationships, this person really needs to be swept off their feet. They need to be wined and dined. They need an exciting conversation. They need someone who is willing to show them the excitement that they need and deserve. Boredom is one of the Achilles heels of the chronic cat. Now, when it comes to this person's sexual desires, this is where things get a little bit more complicated because where this person has those physical, actual needs, there is some emotional and psychological damage here. So, what is really required in this person's partner is understanding, patience. What's required from this person is the need to also understand how and why they've been affected by the things they have, to find ways to healthily reinvent themselves sexually. And this is a far healthier way rather than um, reliving the familiar trauma as a way of coping with it. Anyway, let's move on into the chirology, that is the lines in the palms themselves and what these mean. Now, I want to get a bit more into the marriage lines, the attachment lines or love lines, as they're sometimes referred to. Now, the interesting thing about these attachment lines, love lines, marriage lines, they can change very quickly. I've seen it happen within the space of a couple of months. A drooping line can turn into a straight and strong and deep, a positive, happy line. Now, where you see these little horizontal lines curving around underneath the little finger above the heart line is the timeline of events in terms of relationships. Now, where we see it lower down the heart line is earlier on in life. So this little line right here is one at around about 35, this kind of age. So 5 years ago for this person. Now you can see this line drooping down. It's connected to this line here. This relationship line or attachment line is drooping down towards the heart line. And what this shows us is how this relationship brings this person down, how the environment around that relationship, it draws us to emotion. It draws towards the heart. It's almost as though the relationship itself is asking the heart for guidance at this time, and it crosses the heart line. So we're bordering that now. We're moving along into the social realms, into the future planning, and its mental health, and actually affects the fate line in this person's path in life. So what we have here is a relationship that's crossing all kinds of boundaries and affecting all manners of life. It's bringing them down, and it really is a sign of divorce in palmistry. So, or separation, and it's a kind of separation that everybody can see. It's revealed to everyone because it's crossing all areas of the life. It's on the left hand here, so it's not as much proof as divorce. If we see it in the right hand as well, the right hand shows us what's physical and practical. Then we see it materializing for all to see, and we see it in both hands. So we know that this has affected this person internally and externally. So I believe we see a breakup. at 35, but this affected this person much more internally than physically. So this is not so much divorce, but it is a separation of a kind, and it was a traumatic and heartbreaking breakup. And this was 5 years ago for this person. This person is now ready to move on, and we can see corroboration of the event of that breakup on the right here at 35, because where the fate line meets, the headline is around the age of 35, might have been 36. So, and we see it here as well. And there's an attachment of this very stressful time. This is just shows how emotionally impactful the turmoil this person was going through uh, during the lead up to this messy breakup. Heartache. This is really horrible. Notice as well, it rises up and meets a little island on the heartline. Again, this shows that connection with the emotional hurt this person was going through. Now, timing relationships on the side of the hand here is a really fickle business, and I have given this age of 35, 36 for this breakup. I could be completely wrong about this. This could actually be 30, it could be 40, it could be actually happening right now. It could be how this person is feeling about a current relationship right now. And I say that because it's just, you really can't rely on this in terms of timing. It's a very rough guideline. This shows here, I would put it down to about 35, maybe possibly 30. It's so hard to tell because we can't know how old this person is going to live for. And when this person ages, these relationship lines actually move down on the palm, corresponding to the age they will live to. So it's almost a scale of events that continually changes with current and potential future circumstances, which is why it's just not a reliable way of conducting timing events. The most reliable ways are to corroborate details seen in the palms with the lifeline and the fate line as seen here. And I do think that it was 35 just because of everything I've said. This corroborating evidence. We see in the left hand lots of interference almost, lots of horizontal lines. There's a lot of the kind of flicking away lines, reaching down, lots of different periods of disappointment and um, I'm not really sure how to put it, a lack of focus emotionally at certain times, a lack of fulfillment emotionally as well in love. What I do get from this person is a great sense of will and determination. There is no stopping this person. The thumb is such an incredible example of, this drive and motivation. There is, however, a little bit too much in terms of ideas, and I think this person is feeling a little bit weighed down by the burden that they are having to deal with at the moment in life. I think there's probably quite a lot going on in their life at the moment in terms of family, love life, and career. And I think it's all just getting a bit too much. And I think this person probably needs to take a bit of time off, a couple of weeks, and to get affairs in order. And this will reduce this person's stress because that's what we're seeing here with these many lines in this person's hand. We're seeing quite a bit of stress. We're seeing how it affects this person as well with their digestive system as well. So it's extremely important that this person really manages the way they live their life in order to reduce stress to live a more effectively healthy lifestyle. Now, what's interesting is I see here a line, a marriage or attachment line later on in life. This looks to be about the age of perhaps 50. I'll just throw it out there. Again, not an accurate prediction, particularly. But it's interesting that it shows us this in the left hand because if this person is in a relationship right now, it's showing this idea, this internal thought or desire that this person actually wishes to meet someone else and how that relationship might work out is hinting at that. On the right hand, I believe I see it just here as well, although it's not that clear. And here again, we can see that same curvature of that early attachment line, although again, it's not very clear. It's a little dark in this image. And actually, you can see it a bit more clearly here. There it is. And you can see one just above it, which is a really nice sign because it shows that actually, at the age of let's say I'm going to say about 45. Let's just say 45. This person may well meet someone new. Who knows how that relationship will turn out? Because, as I say, these lines can and do change all the time. I've seen them change. And a lot of the time, this curvature downwards towards the heart line is because money is one of the biggest causes of a breakup or biggest strains in a relationship. It's one of the biggest reasons why couples have arguments. And quite often, once those money issues are sorted out, this line can strengthen, straighten out, and become a lot more positive and productive, showing a lot more of a happier and longer lasting union. Now, one of the key signs of a happy, long lasting relationship is a cross on the Jupiter mount. Now, this is a clearer image of this person's hand, and you can, in fact, see a cross here on the Jupiter mount. So, regardless of where this person is in their relationship right now, I think that in future, this person will have a very stable and happy, long lasting, and loving relationship, regardless of their current struggles or what has been. I do see this is a very positive sign in terms of relationships. Now, one of the things I want to point out about these marriage or attachment lines, if we were to ask the question, will my husband be rich? How can I see in palmistry if my partner is wealthy? Well, one of the key indicators for that is a marriage line or attachment line that rises upwards towards the sun line and sort of strengthens the sun line. And this shows that it's an interpretation, I suppose. It's a representation of how the relationship is affecting a person's happiness. The sun line here, which we can see two of, which is a really beautiful sign, shows for this person two incomes. But the sun line essentially shows us our joy, our path towards happiness in life. It's what makes our life shine, what makes us shine as well, which is also seen in the Apollo finger, the sun finger, if you like, or these are also obviously known as sun lines. So that's how we see if a person, and particularly if it's seen in the right hand, because again, that's what's material, that's practical. It shows us um, how our partner affects us financially, because of course, money doesn't necessarily equate to happiness. However, it does bring us the freedom, the financial freedom, which is obviously in part what happiness and peace is. So, a relationship line or an attachment line that rises up towards the sun line and touches the sun line, or at least points towards it, shows us a partner. We have a partner who has a lot more money than us, that may well in some way be famous, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we will be happy in that union. I just want to stress that because I see that question asked a lot. Will my husband be rich? Well, maybe, but the key question you should be asking yourself, will I be happy in that relationship? So far I've answered divorce, how we see that sign. I've answered the question I've just answered is, will my husband be wealthy? Famous, how to see that in the palms, and how to time the marriages or relationships in our palms as well. So that's a kind of summarized um, love reading, if you like, for this person, and just to kind of teach those who are watching as well. Now, this person also wants to know about their career at present, currently, and where we see that is on the fate line or career line, which rises up generally towards the Saturn finger. And as I've also already stated in this reading, 35 is just where the fate line meets the headline as a general rule of thumb. This person is very cautious. They're a planner. They think ahead. And as I say, they're a great organizer, particularly with other people's work. And this is why, all of the things combined here I've mentioned, they have a critical keen critical senses. They have a good understanding of sense and taste, a good eye for color and fashion. But I think this person is a caterer of some sort, an organizer in the food industry. That's my prediction here. And that combined with the peacock's eye, I think this person has a real flair for um, taste and design. So where are we in their career right now? Well, This is about the age of 42. There will be some sort of emotional hurdle here, perhaps pertaining to a relationship, could be family related. It could even be a physical health issue that prevents or threatens to prevent work. However, when we look at the fate line after this time, it doesn't seem to impede that role. We see actually two fate lines. A multiplying fate line shows someone with serious amount of ambition, someone who has hobby on the side, who is looking to turn that into a second income stream. That's generally what multiplying of fate lines shows us in palmistry. And this is corroborated by the multiplying of the sun lines or Apollo lines as seen on the sun mount here. So really we have someone who is, this emotional or physical disturbance here looks to impact on the secondary, potential career interest. Uh, it does impact it, but it doesn't stop it because again, we see actually a strengthening of that later on from 53 and onwards. This actually strengthens, and we can see a direct correlation with this and how this person is living out um, their prosperity, their peace, and their happiness in life. Now, from 53 and onwards, we see a doubling of the rear line again, and the strength of it later on. This person, I believe, will work well into their 70s and at least have an influence on others in that industry if they are, in fact, retired at this time. I don't think they will. I believe this is when they retire, which is, at the moment anyway, this is what the palms are saying, because the lines do change, believe it or not, that this person will work well into their 70s, potentially even 80s. I think they will be a great influence on others. They are a leader by example. They have this, teaching quality. There's a real humility about this person. They're very gracious in how they teach and pass on this information. And actually, I think in terms of their career, the best is yet to come. I think that from 53 and onwards, there will be a doubling of opportunities. And I think that from 60 onwards, there will be, in particular, um, a good amount of money coming in and a great amount of job satisfaction. So, as I say, for this person, in about 2 years' time, I would say there will be an obstacle. It's either going to be emotional or physical. And to really get to the bottom of that, I'm going to look at the left hand because this shows us what's internal. Now you can see at the same time there is still a disturbance here. It's not quite the same feature, although what we see here is that it's close to home. It's the domestic sphere. So this is more a family related obstacle. It does affect things practically. It will affect potential income, but not both incomes. And it's more an event that's, it might well be sort of having to look after mum and dad for a bit, something like that. It affects this person. On the subject of mum and dad, I think this person takes after their father more than their mother. A real interesting thing that I haven't actually mentioned here yet is, let me just see. It looks to me as though, it actually appears to me as though this person's Saturn finger has in fact shrunk. At first I thought, well, Jupiter looks to have increased in length, but actually, and I think it has a tiny bit, but actually what I think I see here is Saturn having shrunk a little bit. It might just be the way this image was taken, but looking at this image here as well, and what this would tell us, if this is in fact accurate, which I think it is that this person cares less about the rules and bureaucracy now than ever before. This person is more carefree now. And this coincides with this strengthening of Luna as well. As I say, I mentioned earlier, this person, I think, enjoys life a bit more on the weekends now. I think they take care of themselves a bit more now. There's more alignment now. This person is happier. They've worked through a lot of their trauma that they went through as a child. And I think that's a real testament, again, the strength of this person's character the will and determination, the drive, the motivation this person has is immensely strong. In relationships, I would give a little bit of caution to how this person reacts. Um, with their anger at times because their Mars mount, their inner Mars mount is very strong. And at times, this kind of the warrior within might um, overcome the lover. I think this person's ideas about their success, there's certainly fears here. There's a lot of anxiety about the road ahead in terms of their career. I think they feel and felt that they should be earning a lot more, given the effort that they've put in. And maybe that's true, but the success lines here, the sun lines, are completely different on the right hand. It will happen, and it will be strong. There will be a good amount of money coming in. Now, one of the key signs, markings I've seen in this hand, which might be one of the most prominent and most important signs I point out here altogether, is this little square seen right here on the Mercury mount. And you see it here as well, it's even larger here. There is a real fear about this person's business going under. Um, as I say, I think this person is actually a bit of a business owner, a boss of some sort. They have this need, not desire, a need for autonomy. So I don't think they are not the boss. I think this person's likely catering business is actually going to be okay. I don't think there's a need to worry. This person is safeguarded, protected, because the square in palmistry is always protective around this financial worry, which is why we see in the left hand such a strong and prosperous business line. The fear around the road ahead in terms of their career path is a scary one. But what we see here is stability and strength. We see that doubling, the forking of the career, the fate line at the end is a really positive sign. We see growth. And what we see at the beginning of this person's life here that I mentioned earlier, this almost kind of heart shape, what we see actually here is a fish on the lifeline, a fish on the fate line, and they're kind of stuck together and it kind of provides us with this heart with a tail. And what this really is showing us is an extreme traumatic event early on in life, which I've already mentioned. We've seen the impacts of in the fingers and at the beginning of the lifeline, how it affects this person emotionally. And we even see an ambition line rising out onto the Jupiter mount afterwards. This person has that determination, that drive to say, no, I'm going to make a change here. I'm not going to stand for this. Even at this very young age in life, 16 perhaps, this was this strong ambition of what I'm going to do with myself and how I'm going to achieve. And what this sign shows us is extreme um, and painful, unfortunate, traumatic event, and how it shaped this person, and how it has enabled this person. This awful, impactive, traumatic event has created roots for this person's life and their career. In a way, it shaped them. In a way, it has enabled them, strengthened them, because through these experiences, this person has become grounded. They've gained a sense of the worst of things. It's given them perspective. And it's not without struggle. I'm not going to say that, magically because of this, it's enabled them and that they've had it easy since then, because they haven't. It's been a real struggle to get to where they are. And there's now a new threat on the horizon, a financial threat, but this person will be okay. They will be safeguarded financially. Their business will be okay. I see that here. See a clear sign of that here. I also see, essentially this is a very mysterious person. And as I've said, this person has retracted emotionally. They've kind of closed off the borders. Venus is not as large on the right, the borders of Venus, the Venus mount itself. They've come out of their shell certainly in some ways, but they need to do that a bit more. They need to reveal who they are essentially to their closest, um, to their partner in a relationship. They need to put all the cards out on the table, expose themselves. And I think there's a real fear about doing that. But once that's done, I think they'll realize that actually they haven't got a great deal to lose because, in fact, what they've already lost in life is all they're going to lose. They only really stand to gain more. There are going to be some hurdles in the way, as I have already mentioned, but the majority of what they've lost in life, it's already happened. Loss, they've already gone through. In future, they stand to gain. Moles in palmistry are a tricky business to interpret and decipher, and in certain circumstances, I mean, looking at just being that we've got it on the left hand here, I would say that this is an internal issue. It's Venus, it's familiar, it's relationships close to home, it's an emotional, loving potential issue. I would say that it is possibility of, I would say, deceit in relationships. If seen in the right hand on the Venus mount, I would say this is potentially some sort of issue or disease, perhaps linked to reproductive organs. I would think that being we have a relationship line that kind of veers towards this area might well have some connection with this potential deceit in relationships. Although, to be completely honest, when it comes to moles in palmistry, the jury is out there. You know, for me, I'm not completely convinced. There are many, many different kinds of interpretations as to what moles mean in palmistry. Some would say, and this may well be true, that the dark black, a darkened mole like the seen on the Venus Mount shows that need, that intense, deep desire for a deep and meaningful relationship. And I think, everything I've seen in this palm would say that actually would indicate that's true. I think they have artistic inclinations, they are charming, and I think they're probably attractive. I think there's a real a vibrancy to their character, and their personality is also very attractive. And I think that's what this is potentially showing as well. I would believe more, the latter of what I'm saying, of this interpretation of what this mole is saying. Although I think it's because I'm so undecided, I actually kind of just want to throw out the whole mole altogether anyway, because actually what I've said elsewhere in this palm reading is, more accurate and corroborates. It's extremely important in palmistry to never conclude from one sign or symptom alone. I mean, it's very rare you can do that. I mean, you can do it more with something that's very physical, like a health um, sign, you know, marking pertaining to a health issue is much more reliable in that way. But it's always good to look at the whole hand before concluding. And remember that palmistry is a healing practice. It's about guidance, and it should never be used for harm. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you have learned something. I've really enjoyed reading this person's palm, and I hope they've taken away something positive from it as well. If you'd like a palm reading with me, please visit my website, have a look at the options there, choose which is most suitable, and I will be in touch. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe.